Okay, we're live. Welcome, welcome. Hello, ladies of the She Network. We're so happy to have you here. My name is Taylor Thompson, and this is the She Network, where we are here sharing her excellence and pouring into women, really getting them unstuck out of their rut, and that they believe that they are good enough, strong enough, empowered to do what God's called them to do. Really, that's the truth. And so as you ladies are coming on, I have this bad habit of saying you guys. You ladies are coming on. Let us know you're here. We want to say hi because this is our Monday Mom's Mindset, and I have the most imperfect mom to be on here today, especially during this time after we had an amazing Easter weekend. Let us know you're here. And if you go on the top, you'll see StreamYard. There's a little link there that gives StreamYard your permission, your permission to show your name. Let us know you're here. So I see some people coming on. I just don't see who it is that's joined us. So here we are. It is after Easter weekend, and just the most bizarre Easter that I've ever had in my life, but it was beautiful. And I want to welcome on my beautiful friend, Miss Nicole Domuret. So I said that right? Domuret?
You did.
Yes. Yay! I love it. So anyway, this is we were actually having a little pre-chat here, and this is really the perfect situation, the perfect mom to be on here on Mom's Monday Mindset to talk about her story and to share her story, to share her journey, and to share what's happened with her. She's got a lot of things to celebrate, and so we'll get into that. So how are you, Nicole?
Oh, I'm fantastic. Taylor, thank you for asking. It's a beautiful day here in Houston, Texas. My family's studying. My husband's working from home. So we're feeling blessed right now.
I love it. Well, so let's talk about this story. Let's talk about you, and you have an incredible journey, and to be the mom of five. And that's hard to even say out of my mouth, because I struggle with three, five, what? And so let's tell your story. Tell us about your journey and how you got to where you are.
Great question. I appreciate that. So I will say this first, Taylor. If you have 3, you can have 20, because now you know how to juggle. Not a big difference between 3 and 5.
Okay, that's good information.
It's absolutely true. I remember Jim Gaffigan saying after I had 4, I felt like I was this ball in the middle of the ocean with no hands, drowning, and someone handed me another baby. And it is what it is. God just gives you the graces to actually do your very best. You just take on. So,
well, I relate to that, because I remember whenever I was pregnant with, the third, and I'm like, wait, this can't happen. I only have 2 hands. I don't have 3 hands. So I love the way you position that. Now you know how to juggle. But what a true statement. So if you can juggle 3, you can juggle 5.
You can. Yes. I have a friend. One of my best friends has 12.
Holy cow.
I know. Hard to imagine, but just watching the way as the older ones work and become leaders in the family, they help with the younger ones. It's an amazing dynamic to watch. It's like God just knows what he's doing when he makes those big families. It's beautiful.
I love that. Well, she's keeping all of us who keep the ratios down. She balances everyone out, right?
Oh my goodness. That's funny.
Well, so tell us your story. So you're from Houston. We're neighbors, literally. Dallas and Houston, we're neighbors. So
awesome. Well, I'll tell you something. I love what I do, and I'm an extrovert. So it's been very hard being indoors. I'm actually yelling out the windows to neighbors as they're walking down, getting their exercise in, and waving at them because I just want to talk to people because I can't hug them. But I've been like that my entire life. I was an athlete my entire life. My dad was my coach pretty much in everything I did because he just wanted to be involved, right?
Yes.
And so I was always very competitive. I loved always being healthy. I loved always having the opportunity to have good produce on the table because my dad was also a farmer. And he just took both of those things and always implemented them. I'm the youngest of 8. And
wow.
So being able to my parents were like, they'd done it long enough and wrong enough. When they finally got to me, they weren't exhausted. They just felt like they could really hone in and be present. And I feel very special for that. I mean, it was such a gift to have my dad, especially, just really loved me so much. And because of that, I just I wanted to go on and do something very interesting. I went to Bible college. I studied Bible methodology. I wanted to be able to rip the scriptures apart and put them back together and make timelines. I just loved it so much. The history of the Bible was so fascinating to me. And then I got in about a year and then realized that that wasn't my calling anymore. And I I ended up, for me personally, Taylor, I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but I'm sure a lot of people can. I had some traumas in my childhood that pretty much kept me from ever believing in myself. And sorry, there was an interruption there. It wasn't just the fact that I didn't believe in myself. Can you see me?
I can. Okay. Yeah.
It wasn't that I just didn't believe in myself, but there were secrets from my childhood that impacted me so deeply. I was molested at the age of 4. I was date raped at 16. And when those things happened to me, Taylor, I was so afraid. And it started with the first incident because it was a family member. Because I was so afraid that it would disconnect my family and break my family apart, even at the age of 4. And I was told to be quiet, never say anything, that I kept that to myself. And so when I was date raped at 16, I kept it to myself. I buried it all. I suppressed it all. I just remember hearing Trent Shelton talk about that, how a lot of people are asked, hey, are you doing okay with that, whatever your situation is? Because a lot of people have tragedies and they don't talk about them. But a lot of people say, well, I'm good with that. I'm okay with that tragedy. But the truth is, you probably have suppressed it and you were too afraid to ever talk about it. But for me, what happened was every time I got into a relationship, I pushed them away because I was so afraid of pain. I was so afraid of letting people know who I was that I would get into college, I would drop out. I would get into school, I would get into a job, I would drop out. And I knew that I was created for more. And when I finally decided to drop out of school,
let's talk about.
My parents weren't excited about that, but I did do something that made them happy, and I went into industrial real estate, and that's where I was for a very long time.
Can you hear me?
You hear me?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
No. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Good.
But you can't hear me. Okay. So.
No.
Are you on your phone?
I'm so sorry about that. I can't hear you. Would you like me to keep talking?
No, I want you to go out and come back in.
Okay.
Go out, come back in. You okay. Go out.
Go out?
Yes. Yes. Okay, so we're here talking to Nicole, and for those of you who are just joined on, if you're just joining in, she's going to go out and come back in because she can't hear me, so it's hard to do an interview if you can't hear me, the interviewer. So she was just talking about how she had a background. At the age of 4, she was molested at the age of 4 by a family member. And then she was date raped at the age of 16, and how she had basically thought that she had dealt with those issues in her life. But what happened is that she essentially buried those. And we were just about to dive into this particular conversation because she's coming back on. So just hang tight. You know, I was always taught that you can't bury live emotions. And so whenever you don't deal with your issues, whenever you don't deal with things of your past, whenever you don't deal with traumas that happen inside of your life or as they unfold in your life, they will surface at some point. They will surface and they will continue to come out. So, that's what we were about to dive into. So, and I know that you can hear, thank you for sharing that. And it just says Facebook user, just so you know, like there is the way that you can see that. Now, can you hear me? Now I can't hear you. I can't hear you now. I can't hear you. Nope. Nope. Okay, So I'm going to show this to you just so as we're waiting here. So it says Facebook user, it says, I can hear you both. So if you will go up there and you can see up there, you can show yourself. Like it allows you on the link up there, and it gives you a permission to share this or to show who's talking. So anyway, just a little FYI there as she's coming back on. We've been having so many challenges with the internet and so many issues with people, because there's so many people working from home, and there's so much stress, I guess, on the bandwidth, on people working from home and using the internet, that we've had many, many challenges with being live or being inside of a group or sharing a training or going on live, and it goes away. So I think that may be what we're dealing with, or the issue that we're dealing with Nicole. So she couldn't hear me, then I couldn't hear her. So now she's coming back on. So anyway, for those of you who don't know, as she's coming back on, hopefully we'll get this together. And let me know that you're coming in. Nicole's coming back in, so please be patient, hang tight with us. Nicole Domuret, she was just starting her story and sharing with her about how she had been molested. She's the youngest of 8. She had been molested at the age of 4 by a family member, and how she had went on to, at the age of 16, she was date raped. And then, so she was getting into her story and basically sharing what took place and what was unfolding. And so we were just discussing the issue of what happens whenever you go through traumatic events, whenever you experience trauma in your life and you don't deal with it properly. You don't acknowledge it, and you don't deal with it in a healthy way. I had been to counseling, just through some issues that I had experienced. And, one of the things that I learned through that process is that you can't bury live emotions. You can't, if the emotion is there and it hasn't been dealt with, whatever it is, anger, rage, unforgiveness, whatever that is, you can't bury that. And so there was this book that I was reading, and it had to do with disease and burying live emotions. And what happens is whenever people, they don't deal with their issues and they don't deal with their emotions, and they start to sweep it under the rug because that becomes comfortable. We start sweeping, how we're feeling under the rug. But that's not really what you're doing. You're actually putting it into a place where your body hangs on to it, and it becomes to a state of what they call disease. I'll share this book with you. Dis-ease, that's where they get the term disease. And so the emotions that we carry, we store them in our organs, we store them in our body. And so it comes to a point where it's like it festers up, and it basically culminates and manifests into disease. And typically it's become, the studies that I've done, it's typically been about autoimmune, and like especially autoimmune diseases such as like fibromyalgia, lupus, many of those, rheumatoid arthritis, all Hashimoto's, all of those things that have to deal with our bodies and how our bodies are responding through an autoimmune response. And they can link it back to some sort of emotion or some sort of something that you haven't really dealt with, especially unforgiveness. And so anyway, if you're coming on, I see a couple of people here. Nicole is coming back on. I think we're having some internet challenges on her end. And so I don't know where she went. So you guys hang on. Let me know you're here. I see two of you, two here. And she's texting me. So it's not letting her back in. Okay, well, Okay, so here's, let me see, invite. Give me 1 second, ladies. I'm going to invite her back on, and we will keep this ball moving. And thank you so much for your patience. I hope everybody had an amazing, amazing holiday. And thank you so much for being here. We actually, oh, hi, Stacy. Thank you so much for being here. We're having some major technical challenges here, so I'm glad you're here. I hope you had an amazing time with your family over the Easter holiday. It was definitely not the norm. It wasn't the normal holiday that we typically experience, for sure, but we have definitely so many things to be thankful and grateful and appreciative to. And Stacey, I've got to get you in here. I've got to get you in here to share your story and share. I mean, you're definitely on my list and would love to have you on here. So as you guys are coming on, let me know you're here. I see that you let StreamYard share. So I'll show you what this looks like. So here's what it looks like if you don't give Facebook permission. And this is what it looks like whenever you do give Facebook or StreamYard your permission to be here. So right now I'm waiting on, we've gotten, Nicole got kicked off. And so I've been here patiently waiting for her to come back on. And so, yes, I appreciate you. It was a little bit weird. It was a little bit strange, and definitely not, you know, I mean, I was always taught in my environment, in the space, and you can apply this to any aspect of your life. And that's this, you know, that we are dealt, you know, it's like playing a hand of cards, right? And whenever the dealer deals you out your hand, right? And you pick up the cards and you're looking at the cards, and sometimes we have a great hand and sometimes we don't. And so it is one of those things that you have to learn how to play the hand you're dealt. And so that's what we're doing right now. That's what essentially all of this comes down to is how you're playing the hand you've been dealt. How are you dealing with it? How are you responding, you know, in this environment? How are you responding, you know, with the set of circumstances that you've been given? And, you know, because at the end of the day, this hand is applied in everything, you know, whether it's a relationship, whether it's finances, whether it's business, whether it's your children, whether it's a health situation, whatever it is, we're always being dealt a hand, and we have to learn how to play that hand, right? You can play it out good, you can play it out not so good. And so it's all in how we respond. And this is Nicole, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Wow.
Okay, so sorry about that, ladies. So I've been keeping everybody entertained while you've been on. And I meant to tell you that if you were on a phone, if you don't silence it, it throws the whole dynamics of the conference completely.
That's okay. That was my fault. So I appreciate it. I'm just happy to be back.
Yes,
I'm happy to be here.
So I was telling the ladies a little bit about, we had major conversations since you've been gone, but we were talking about, I was sharing a little bit about, you know, your journey being, you know, how you were, how you were abused at the age of 16. And so I went through this process of really talking about whenever you don't deal with those things, whenever you don't deal with those emotions, you know, most people think that you sweep it under the rug. You don't sweep it under the rug. You can't bury live emotions. It's impossible. They will manifest in some way in our life. And so anyway, that's what we were having a little conversation about. We were talking about how you play the hand you've been dealt. And so pick back up where you were, because I really wanted to, and I think we dove into this a lot, because if you don't know that at the age, you know, how to deal, you couldn't, there's no way you could have emotionally dealt with that at the age of 4, especially whenever the distrust is gone, like, you know, trust and trusting of adults. And the same would probably be true at the age of 16, because you're still learning to navigate who do I trust? You know, who do I, put my heart in their hands? And is that even possible having been betrayed in different, stages of your life. So let's talk about that a little bit.
I would love to. Let me say this first. In both incidences, I felt like I was to blame. I felt like I deserved it. I felt like I had done something wrong. And you can't actually anyone can wrap their mind around how can you feel that way, especially as a 4-year-old child. But I'll tell you, first of all, when the incident occurred when I was 4 years old, I think this is important to know because we put so much power in the hands of people that are powerful in this world. Mm. And the person's father was very, very popular throughout the United States. He had a magazine and he was very well known. And my mother worshipped the ground that her brother walked on. She wishes she could be him. She loved him so much. He was an amazing man. I loved him too. He was such a good man to me. Anyway, it was my uncle. But because of that, I was so afraid that the same thing was going to happen when the date rape occurred because the guy was popular. Mm. And I was so afraid that if I ever said anything, that no one would believe me. And I felt like I brought it on somehow. I never healed because I never told anyone. I kept brushing it under the carpet because I just didn't feel worthy enough to say anything because I didn't think I was as important as the outcome. Yeah. In both occasions, right? So what that led to.
No, and isn't that interesting how the enemy of our soul works, to try to isolate you and to keep your mind fed with the lies that we tell ourselves, right? And I think that especially for women, we're not always reared in the environment that we have the confidence to be able to stand up because so many times we've seen it's like being bullied, right? I mean, in this world, a lot of times people don't stand up for the underdog or the person, the victim, the abused, because they don't want the target on their back. They don't want to become involved because that would put a target on their back, right? I mean, do you know what I'm saying? Like that. I think that
absolutely. And then you would end up in your own mind, you're thinking 20, 30, 40 years down the road, I'm going to have the stigma on I'm going to have the red,
yes,
scarlet letter on my chest for the rest of my life. No one will ever know me for who I am. They'll always remember me for what I did or what happened to me.
Or see you as a victim. You would never be able to overcome because they would stereotype you in that role.
Right. I kept myself there without anyone's help. I was already there. I stayed a victim for so long. But I'll tell you, Taylor, unless you start to heal and find help, because taking the Band-Aid off slowly, it doesn't work. You need to take it off fast and start. You're going to bleed, but you need to heal. And unless you bleed, you're not going to heal. And I just experienced this firsthand. And I also saw a lot of my friends experience this. But as I moved forward, I found this amazing job. I started to build confidence. But guess what? I fell into the same trap again. The confidence wasn't in myself. It was in what I could achieve. I was an amazing swimmer. I was a USA Olympic team swimmer as well. I was an athlete, like big time athlete. And so I could always put myself into things and do my very best. But when it came to believing in myself, my biggest cry was men. I was afraid of men, and I was afraid of feeling like I deserved good men. And so I fell into it again, and I got into a relationship with a man that was 20 years older than me, and he was super wealthy. I was doing incredibly well in industrial real estate, climbing the ladder, enjoying what I did. I really did love what I did. And it also took me away from who I was. I just became this shell of the woman who I thought was going to make me happy because this is as good as it gets. But the relationship started becoming very, very abusive. And I was afraid again to ask for help from my friends and my family. I was so afraid that my mom and dad, if they saw me again as a victim, which they never did the first time or the second time, but here I am again thinking, if I tell my parents that this relationship is failing, because they were so proud of me, they always said it, we're so proud of everything you've accomplished. I just didn't want to take that pride away from them until one day it had gotten so bad, I just was afraid for my life. And so when he had left for work, I came back home from work. I packed up things that I could, my essentials and a few clothes. And I realized, because he was so abusive, that as soon as he found out that I left him, that it would be a storm and I would never be able to walk into this house again. And that's exactly what happened. I turned away from everything I owned. I had my Jaguar, I had my big house, I had all of that stuff. I sat on the stairs of my house, and my feet wouldn't move down the stairs, my suitcase. I was so afraid because I knew what was going to happen, that I was going to have to start over. But at the same time, I'm like, if I don't take this Band-Aid off, I'm just going to keep sitting in this victim mentality. And I looked up, and there was this painting on my wall that I had purchased in Italy, and it was of the Last Supper. And my eyes, and I hadn't looked at it in so long, my eyes caught Jesus's eyes as he was looking up. And I thought, oh, this has to be you. You're giving me the strength, because I can't do this without you. I'm no good without you. I can't do this. I can't manage. So I took a deep breath, went down the stairs, out the door. And of course, everything I said came true. Yeah. It was awful. Restraining order, living with friends, starting over, trying to keep my relationship with everybody at work going and normal. Everybody knew what was going on, because it kind of follows you to work when things like this happens. And it was the beginning of the healing. But the biggest thing that had to happen to me, what came years later. And so we could talk about that, but this is actually well after my network marketing career too. So I didn't know if you want to just.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is what happened. I get into network marketing because 7 years ago, after my 5th child was born, I nearly died in childbirth. And that experience, I remember everything about that. Pretty amazing that you can when you're actually dying on an operating table. They opened me up, did a cesarean without any type of anesthesia, because they had lost me. But I could still think. And I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't even feel my ears. I kept saying the word Jesus because that's all I could get out. I couldn't pray anymore. But my last thought was, I'm going to die and I'm not going to meet my son, William. And it was such a bizarre thing to think, I can't believe this is happening to me. Why is this happening to me? But when I came to, that's a whole different story for another day. But when I came to, I was so thankful that I was still here. I was cold and I knew I was alive, and I was grateful. But for the next year, I spiraled out of control because I was so sick. I couldn't take care of my preemie son that was on a heart monitor, my other 4 children, my husband having to work and be mom and dad, and he was amazing. Yes, I did go on and meet a phenomenal man later. God brought him into my life, and he's an amazing, amazing dad and husband. But what happened was I started becoming very successful in network marketing because I was able to pour into other people. I needed them to see what I had seen through what had helped me, because someone got out of their comfort zone, offered me something, it worked. And I realized everybody needed it. And the reason I did this was because I had such a deep belief and core belief in what I was doing. And it takes that. So here I am doing well. And I get a phone call from my cousin. And she says the man that had molested me had passed away. And he was very popular. It's very strange how things happen, but he was one of the top professors at a very elite university. And he was so loved. And he was just running on the Katy trails up there in Dallas with his wife. And very young, had a massive heart attack, was in great shape, had a massive heart attack and died there on the Katy trail. And when I got that call, I felt like my heart had stopped. And I think some people might think, did you have relief that this man was gone? And the first thought was fear for his soul, because there was never, ever any apologies. Nothing was ever brought up again. And I was so sad. But of course, then that led into everything. I just fell apart. And I called my husband in the bathroom and I said, I need to tell you something.
So at this point, your husband had no idea that you had went through this as a child?
That's right. We were 8 years into our marriage and he had no idea. He knew nothing about anything. I hadn't told a soul. Literally, I hadn't told a soul about anything that ever happened to me until this happened to that man. And then I realized I had put myself in such a victim mentality for so long. I had abused relationships and pushed people away because I was so afraid of getting close or feeling like a fraud in the relationship because I'm not a good person. I'm not meant to have love. And that wasn't just for men. It was from friends. It was from everybody. I just always felt so small.
But okay, but this is so true, Nicole. Every woman that has been abused, misused, this is the pattern of the way they think.
Yeah.
You know, and they pull back and they retract because they think they're the only ones, right? They don't, and not dismissing any of this, but there's healing in having the conversation, you know, and you know, hence this is why I feel so strong and passionate about the She Network and women having open conversations and hearing somebody's story, because hearing your story empowers the other woman that's watching you, that's like, I need to get this, I need to share this, I need to heal, I need to, there's greatness inside of me, right? But I just find it so I find it so interesting how women fall into the same patterns and of reclusiveness, right? And so how did your husband respond to you?
He stared at me for a second with a blank stare, and he said, that had to be so hard for you to tell me that. And then he walked over and he hugged me, and that was it. And he said, when you're ready to talk about it, I'm here to listen. And if it's not me, that's okay. But you need to do what you need to do to start healing. And I'll do what I can to be a support to you and start learning. And I said, okay. So He immediately bought a book and podcasts about abuse and how to talk to your spouse about it. And it was very healing that he was doing that, because it made me feel so valued.
Yeah.
I had no idea how he would respond. But I will say, my parents never knew. They both went to their grave, not knowing anything. And so that was the choice that I made. And I think, you know, having the people in my life right now, my bubble, my children, my husband, I think that's very healing in and of itself. When the people you really want to please, you never tell them about those tragedies or those things that do mold you into the human that you are. But I'm still on my journey. I'm still going. I'm still learning. I'm still a student.
I love it. I love that. So, okay. So you're going through this process. It's now you've shared this with your spouse. So what do you do with that? I mean, because this is like Pandora's box.
It is
that you've opened.
Right. I didn't know who to call. I didn't know who would be the right person to help me. And it's so funny how divine intervention happens all the time when you just ask for help. Right. And I just prayed about it. And I said, God, you just let me be a receptacle. Bring the people that can help me, because I don't want to reach out to the wrong people. Because I'm so afraid. I was just so afraid. I felt like a little kitten, like a little crazy, fearful kitten.
Yeah.
But what happened next was really, just really insanely crazy. One of the people in my network marketing team recruited a new person, and it was a mother of 11. Crazy. It reminded me of my other friend, this beautiful, wonderful, middle-aged lady that was just so powerful in her belief in herself and her family and her faith and everything. And I was just, every time I talked to her on the phone, I was just like, wanted to be in her presence, because she made me feel so seen. She knew how to see and appreciate people so properly. And I just was talking to her one night because she had questions, and we were talking, and she said, Nicole, you don't seem to be your normal self. You're always so chipper and happy and full of energy. And I said, well, I'll be honest with you, this just happened. And I couldn't believe that I even told her. But I said, this man died. I just told my husband, you're the second person in the world that knows. And she goes, well, you were supposed to tell me, because I was abused for 10 years by my own father. And I've been through years and years of therapy that has brought me out of this. and you and I are going to have a good talk about it. I said, okay. But it's like God immediately that night put that woman in my lap.
Yeah.
And she helped me through the process of finding the right counselors, of the right books, the right conversations, the way to see myself properly, the prayers to pray. Just, it was an amazing process. And of course, hard. And you still go through it. You still have the monkey on your back, but now you know it's there. And you start seeing the signs so much earlier so you don't spiral out of control. And you realize that the more you help others and serve others, the more you heal.
Yeah. It's so true, because if you know, it's the law of sowing and reaping every single time. You know, if you want if you need a friend, you have to be a friend, right?
Right.
If you need some help, that it's usually the best thing to go out and find somebody you can help or serve, because it's always in the giving that is the receiving is bigger, because you can't outgive God. At the end of you can't outgive God. And so
Absolutely.
I think that's amazing. So, but how did that, okay. So were you doing business and you have 5 kids? So how does, how do you mesh all of those things together? Because I mean, which, brings us to where we are, like currently, like with let's talk about that.
Right. I'd love to. So instead of sitting down in my network marketing company, I decided to speed up and start 2 other companies with 5 children, right? Only because I felt like if I can pour into other people, I'm going to continue to learn and be a better mother, because I was a student of the other people I was training. Like if, I started a business with nutritional workshops. I have a partner. She's in here. Her name's Alex Nyman. And we basically go into corporations and we offer them a way to eat carbs and lose weight. And we play through food for them. And it's very interactive. And it's been very healing for me, because I get around people and I learn from people, but also with the Martyrs Not Mothers. My most favorite part of going on stage and talking to people about my story, and then also talking to them about the resources they have at their fingertips about being a better mother, being a better wife, understanding that all those chores are love. The best part of all of that is at the end when the women come up to me.
Yeah.
Because that's when I feel like I start healing. They tell me their issues and a lot of people want to tell me what they're doing that's successful. And I take that and I run with it, because I want to hear what everybody's doing. That's what helps me heal as a mother. Wearing 3 or 4 hats in my career, I have to turn around and be incredibly disciplined, because my kids deserve more. They can't have the little bitty parts of me left over at the end of the day when you're exhausted. I have to realize, and you probably don't know this, but I have this hat. It's called my trench hat. And when I sit down to get into business and make phone calls, work on the computer, do social media, set up meetings for the stage, anything that I'm doing, I put my hat on, because my kids see that visual is so powerful for them. They know that I'm working, and that means that I give them that time. Mommy needs 1 hour, I need 2 hours, and I promise I'll put it down, that I'm going to come help you with your work, or whatever you want to sing for me. That's great, because my kids are all performers, and I will sit there and put it down and not give it another thought. But that kind of discipline is hard, and we're always still learning. But I've learned from so many women about how to actually implement that properly. So that's where I'm at right now, as far as just always learning from other people, pouring into them and then pouring into me. It's this beautiful circle of women. There are so many amazing, powerful women out there that do want to pour into you. And the very first thing is you have to make sure that you have the right set of women. Oh, Taylor, I love her. Okay, I'm going to keep talking. So for me, guys, hey, Stacy, I see you. Thank you for being here. I'm so happy you're here. In the beginning, I did not have the right group of women. The culture of women that were surrounding me were stressed, browbeaten, angry, pessimistic moms. That's what I moved down into Houston and found. And I was sitting in a group one night and we were doing a Bible study. We probably studied the Bible for 5% of the time. The rest of the time, they were complaining and arguing about their children and their husbands. And there's a story of St. Monica where it's a great story, where she was sitting in the same meeting and she walked up to this woman and slapped her in the face. And she said, "We are all sick to death of listening to you talk about your husband. Maybe if you were a better wife, he wouldn't be so bad." And it's funny how that actually hit me in the moment that I was talking to them. And I thought, I feel like I am so exhausted from their problems that I cannot become better. I can't be a better mom. I feel like I'm starting to take on what they were giving. And so I thought, what's the best thing that I can do? I'm going to start talking to women. And I decided, after a few failed attempts at trying to get women to work out with me, trying to get a lot of moms to work out with me. Sorry about that. I joined this one Facebook group where I was watching this amazing woman, and she was taking care of moms and showing them how valuable they were to their family and how their health and their self-care had to be so important. And I thought, I think I can do that too. So what I did was I took a leap of faith. I went onto this network group called nextdoor.com. Pretty much everybody that lives in a neighborhood knows what that is. And it's your group of people that live around you in the homes and developments within like 5 to 10 miles of where you live. And I put out a message. I'm starting a boot camp. If anybody wants to join me, you can. And so what happened next was 3 days later, I put it out there that I was having it at this time, and 4 people showed up. And I was so excited. The first 5 minutes, no one was there. I thought, oh, this is such a bust. And then I saw little cars, start to trail in. I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope they're here for me. I'm going to feel like an idiot because I have all this workout board and my water and some weights and all this here. And they were there for me. And it was the spark of an amazing relationship with people that wanted to become better. Hey, Taylor.
You're such a pro. Thank you so much. Between you and I,
you're welcome.
All of this.
I was talking about how when I first moved to Houston from Dallas, I was surrounded by women that were very negative. They were moms that were just tired. They were fed up with their family. They're fed up with their husbands. And I just kept thinking, I'm not going to grow from this. I've got to have better people. And I started a boot camp for moms. And that's where I was when you jumped back on. But it was a boot camp that started with 4 people. And I just kept pouring into them in this Facebook group that I created. It wasn't just about working out and getting healthy or losing weight. It was about understanding your value.
Yeah.
And so it quickly grew from 4 to 500 and giving them a place to go.
So good and so timely, Nicole, because so many moms, especially right now, what we're doing, I think, I'm dealing with a lot of moms who are now turned into homeschool moms that have never done homeschooling before, right? So that's a whole new set of responsibilities, on their plate that they've never experienced before. And so this message becomes very timely for moms across my life hasn't changed so drastically, but I think moms across the globe have changed dramatically. So I think you can really speak life into this scenario. Moms, not martyrs, right?
Right. Right. We just become more powerful, but we can't do that if we're drinking from an empty cup. We have to have a healthy mind, a healthy body. We've got to get better sleep, lower that cortisol, stop stressing. It's the worst thing we can do because we stop thinking and growing when that happens. But I'll tell you, here's a remarkable thing. When you surround yourself by amazing women, it just opens up your heart to so much more love. And you see people with those invisible superhero capes on. Like, for instance, 2 days after Christmas, I fell down the stairs and I broke my leg. And I thought, how am I going to run this boot camp? But my beautiful friend who's on here, her name's Alex Nyman. She had been coming to my boot camp as a mom for over a year, and she was a total beast. She was amazing. And I turned around and I said, Alex, can you please run this until I can get back into it? And of course, here she is, absolutely doing it. I run it 3 days a week. She took over every single class. And then when the quarantine started, her and I got together and she goes, I will teach this on Facebook Lives. And I said, great. And she's getting such an amazing number of people coming onto those lives and still working out and still keeping that culture. So it's amazing how people that are surrounding you just take over and step up because they've come into who they are and what they can offer and how they can serve. And it's just so eye-opening. It's such a blessing.
Well, and here's the thing. And hence again, I'm talking about why I'm so passionate about this community, and a community of women for that very reason, because you just to your point, you can't pour out of an empty cup. Right. And there's so many women, first of all, in their lanes, right, that maybe they don't have an upline or a sponsor, especially like in network marketing, that are pouring into them, and they find themselves, they are the givers, give. give to their family, give to their children, and they're completely depleted. And so they have to be able to surround themselves with other women, like-minded women, who are going to give and pour and fill up their cup. So having communities like this that are focused on really supporting them where they are and meeting them where they are is so powerful and such a needed entity. I mean, so for me, like my vision like this is like taking women in their lanes, genius like yourself, who, you know, have overcome, right? Who have been in the trenches, that have been through the challenges and are overcoming, and they are now really being a light and lighting the path for other women behind them. But that only comes whenever you create an environment, hence that culture, that women can be reared up in, that they have the believability in themselves. And so that's why I love what you're doing. I love this message, you know, moms not martyrs, because it's so easy to fall into that mindset trap, right?
It is. Oh, it's so much easier to fall into that and sit down in mediocrity and not do anything because you feel like you've done the best you can by having children and a husband and doing the chores. And it's the number one excuse I hear all the time. I don't have time. And it's not necessarily building a home-based business. It's the time to do anything. Would you like to go out with the girls this weekend? Oh, I don't have time. Would you like a phone call? I don't have time. Would you like to work out with me? I don't have time. And the thing is, you do. It's just that if you don't make it a priority, it's going to be a struggle. If you don't make yourself a priority, it's going to be a struggle. But then who is it that actually struggles the most? Who is it that's the most miserable? It's the people that aren't seen and wanted, and that's your family.
Right. That's I mean, I wish women as a whole would capture that, because they think that by not allowing themselves time that they're sacrificing because they're putting their family first, but essentially they're really not putting their family first. It's the concept of, you know, what do they say on the airplane? You know, put your oxygen mask on first, and then, you know, the little ones beside you, right? That's what the mindset that we need to have, because that old adage, you know, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, right?
Yes.
I mean, because we are the thermostat to our home. We are the thermostat to our business, to our teams that we're building. We are the thermostat. We control the temperature. And if we don't allow ourselves that downtime, or that time to where we can renew our mind, we can fill up our cup, you know, take care of our bodies, take care of our souls, our minds, our spirits, everything about us, you know, we could be very easily turned into a martyr, you know, and have a really bad attitude at the same time, right?
Right. And it doesn't serve your legacy at all. And I think that's the most important thing. I want my children and my children's children and my children's children's children to still be talking about me in conversation, because I was a good mom and a good wife. And maybe it's a small story of something I made for them, a small story of sitting down and reading with them. It doesn't have to be huge. It's not about me being on stages. It's not about me making $1 million. It's not about any of that, because in the end, none of that is going to want them to come home when they're adults. They have to have a safe haven to come to. And they're not going to remember the messy house growing up. They're not. They don't remember that. What they remember is if they felt loved and seen and appreciated. Because if they did, I guarantee you they're not going to go out in the world and feel that. So when they know where they're loved and seen and appreciated, they're going to keep coming back home. And that's so important to me.
It's such a powerful message. I love that. And I know, but whenever we first got on, I wanted you to share, you know, the pot.
The pan?
The pan. Please share that story real fast with the ladies. Such a great story.
I will try to tell this quickly. There's a lot of details and I think they're important, so I'll tell it very, very fast. But that's my dad's oatmeal pan. And it's like a treasure to me. It's like a relic. What happened with that pan, it was handed down to me, and pretty much the only thing that survived a flood that we had 5 years ago. We lost everything, and everything that my dad had, we lost as well. But what happened was my dad had been given this amazing award for never missing a day at work and 40 years at General Motors. And
Wow.
so what I remember as a child, 5, 6 years old, right? I remember he would wake up early, go to the gym at 4:30 in the morning, come home and start making breakfast. And I would come in and out of sleep knowing that he would be coming back. And as soon as I smelled the coffee, I was out of bed and in my dad's lap. He would eat the oatmeal and read his Bible scripture to me. Never missed a day. And so that instilled the work ethic in me. But here's the amazing, I think the most amazing part. My dad's story is the most incredible story. He's like a hero. He was raised during the Depression in an orphanage. And if they were fed once a day, he was lucky. But he was adopted at the age of 6 years old by a very abusive family. He never went to school. They put him in the cotton fields. He walked there 2 miles a day at the age of 7 and back by himself. And every bit of money he made went towards their 13 children. And when he was 14 years old, he decided that he would always be the first one there. And the master of this particular property said, whoever gets here early and stays late, whoever gets the most bushels, I'm going to be giving you an extra 25 cents a day. It took him almost 3 months to save that earnings, those incentive earnings, so he could buy a bicycle and not walk anymore. And the very first day he bought that bicycle, he was riding it back home, and his adopted mother saw him and asked where it came from, and he explained it to her, and he told her to go pick a switch in the backyard. They had big bamboo trees, and he picked it, and she told him to take his shirt off, and she caned him. Hard, but this was nothing new for him. He was super physically abused and spat on and was told worthless. But that night, he packed his bag, took his bicycle, and he ran away. And he never went back at 14. And I always asked him, I said, how did you manage? He said, I knew I was worth more than I was being treated. He went on to get a job at a dairy that helped support him until he was 18 years old. And then at 18, he got a job at General Motors and never missed a day in 40 years.
Wow.
And had 8 children and an awesome wife. But he was a man that knew his worth without someone telling him. And he had such a deep belief in God that was instilled in him when he was a child from his parents. His mother passed away when he was 5 years old. His father passed away when he was 6 years old. And that's when he was placed in an orphanage. But he remembered always being told about God. God will always get you through anything. And he didn't even know prayers. But he said, I know he's there and he's going to get me through this. And it's like that faith with such little evidence is so incredible. But that was my dad. And so I'll finish this by saying,
well, the scripture says, train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they're old, they will not depart.
And it's the perfect example. It's amazing, isn't it? And he had the faith of a mustard seed. It was just unbelievable. And we had gotten into such a great place in our business that my dad got a little sick. We decided to bring him in. We bought a new house, accommodated him in it. But 2 days after he moved in, we had that moment where we could sit down and he's like, I'm so proud of you. And I felt like I've done all of this right. This moment, this new chapter of being with my grandchildren. Thank you for being that daughter. I said, thank you for always being that dad. And the next morning I came downstairs, didn't smell the coffee, and my dad had passed away in his sleep. I only had him for 2 days. Oh. And that's where my story begins with Mother Not Martyr. Wow. That's where I started to discover where I had to get out of this. I no longer could sit in this. My dad was such a big, huge example to me. Now my father was gone. I had that same experience over and over and over with tragedies of just spiraling out of control and going back to square one. But now I couldn't do it. I had 5 children and a husband, and I knew that I was designed and created for more. And so as I started to go on my journey, I started realizing it was because there's so many people out there. I'm not special. There's so many people out there just like me that just needed to hear I'm just as ordinary as they are, and that they are extraordinary in what they can do and what they can provide and the massive impact that they can have on lives.
Wow. That's such a cool story. Love that story. I'm so glad I asked about it because, that really is amazing. So, as we get to closing up here, so we're going to be, because in the She Network, we talk about sharing her excellence, and what is it that you're going to give to the ladies? Inside we're going to have this amazing membership site. What is it that you want to pour into them? What is it that you want to give to them?
I want to be able to give them a strategy that's going to allow them to set up their day every day in less than an hour, where they can look at themselves and say, this is who I am and what I know I need. So I want to be able to offer them meditations, offer them prayers, offer them guidance, and putting together a block schedule. And then in a teaching of how to make that block schedule and that discipline happen, so they can be present for their family and also feel like super moms in their business. If that's what they're trying to do, they can just be moms and not building a business. But that doesn't mean that you don't have other chores like grocery shopping or making phone calls or paying bills or anything that you need to do at home, or planning activities for your family. All those things require your attention, but we always put them on the back burner because for some reason our chores are in the forefront of our mind. And we feel like if we don't get the chores done, we are failures.
Yes.
And it's just instinctive for every woman to feel like that. And so my goal is to be able to give them a tool set in order to not feel like a failure, realize we're all in the same boat, not to put their mind into the martyrdom, but actually pull themselves out and put that invisible cape on and build the legacy for their family.
Invisible cape. I love that. So, so share with us, because, going through, this story about your dad and, everything, dealing with mindset and dealing with, you talked about the meditations, is there like a favorite verse or something that it's like your go-to, like scripture quote? What is it that like is your go-to?
Okay, I would love to share that. And also I would encourage all the women here, if you haven't read Proverbs 31 and you are a faith-filled, person, please pick up your Bible and read Proverbs 31, because it is who we are supposed to be. And I think it's so encouraging to read it and go, okay, I get it. Here is my outline. Here is the instructions, and you can follow them. But here's a scripture verse that I keep on my desk every day. And it's from Job 26:14. It reads, behold, these are but the outskirts of his ways, and how small a whisper do we hear of him. But the thunder of his power, who can understand? And it makes me see things so much bigger than myself when I read that. Everybody goes through storms, but everybody has the power to come outside of those storms with a story that could change lives. And so with that, also, I have a book that I love, 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 love. And I'm sure most women have read it on here, but I keep going back to it. You can pick it up pretty much in any place of this book and read it and feel good. And it's Brene Brown's Daring Greatly, because it teaches you how to be vulnerable. It's a very uncomfortable place for women and men to go. But being vulnerable is going to teach you who you are, but it's also going to start serving others.
What's the title of the book?
Daring Greatly.
Daring Greatly.
By Brene Brown.
I love her.
She's amazing. And this was her second book, but it's about vulnerability. Having most of her TED Talks are about vulnerability, but this really goes into how to find it. It's really a sensational book.
I love that. So, well, I want to celebrate you here just a minute, because I know that you just was picked one of 5 to be represented on the stage, speaking on stage. So I'm definitely with Ray and Jess, love them and love what they do, and I'm so happy for you. I'm so proud of you. That's such a privilege, such an honor. But I can see why you're so very well spoken, but have such a great story to share.
Thank you. It's an honor. And we just went through some rigorous training to be speakers. And I was there with 7 other amazing women. And I got to tell you something, Taylor, when you're going through training like that with Pete Vargas, they take, and it's Pat Quinn, they take your story and they want you to share it. And then they start ripping it apart. And all of us totally stood up to that and took their advice, put it back together. It was like open heart surgery to find out what's important to share to people. And while your story is important, what's the most important part? Because it's really not about us ever. It's about them. What's the questions that they have, the women here in the She Network? What is it that they need? Let's look at that and answer those questions and put them on the right journey.
Yeah, that's how I've always taught that storytelling is really a lost art, to be honest with you. It's not being taught in the network marketing space as it should be, because most people are they're not thinking about their sharing their story, not for the benefit of sharing their story. They're sharing the story for the person that's listening on the other end. and people don't understand the psychology behind that. And there is a true psychology that goes with that. So I'm super excited, super happy for you. Love that. That's so awesome. And I see our friend Stacy Hall. She's been here with us since the get-go. Stacy, you're amazing. I love you. I can't wait to have you here to share your story. But Nicole, I just this has been a beautiful conversation. I hope some ladies got some true value here. I think it's amazing. And the moms that you have in your group, I know they're being blessed. Would love to be able to make some connections with them and have them on share their journeys as well.
I would love that. I have a few in this group, so that would be beautiful.
So awesome. Okay. Well, that is it for us today. Ladies, thank you so much for interaction. Stacy, you are amazing. Adore you. And we are here where we share our excellence. And I hope that each one of you have a blessed, amazing day. Moms Not Martyrs. This is Taylor Thompson with Nicole Domuret.
Domuret.
I know.
It's okay.
So that's it for us. You guys have a beautiful day. Love and hugs. This is Taylor and Nicole. So bye for now.
Bye. Thank you. Love you. Love you, Stacy.